right, if everybody could stand up. All right. For those who are new, we're walking through the Bible, the history of the Old Testament. And so, and we do hand signs and gestures. Okay? So let's begin with creation, fall. All right, look. I'm falling asleep up here, okay? Let's do it again. Creation, fall, flood, nations, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, Moses, Passover, law, tabernacle, offerings and feasts, counting, spying, wandering, dying. Second, law. Joshua, divide, conquer. 12 tribes. Judges, Deborah, Gideon, Samson. Everyone did what was right in their own eyes, except Ruth and Samuel. United Kingdom, Saul, no heart. David, whole heart. Solomon, half heart. Divided kingdom, mostly bad kings. Prophets speak. All right, sit down. All right, just so we can get a lay of the next. Yeah, so we're in the promised land, as you can see. So this is like where Ur is. This is where Abraham was called. Okay, he followed the Tigris and Euphrates River all the way up to Tehran or Haran, which is around Turkey, and then he went down and then to Egypt, and you saw like in Egypt, and they were back to the promised land, back to Egypt, back to the promised land. So we're right now in the promised land. Okay, we're in that little box right there. Okay, next. All right, so you can see. Can we turn off the lights if you don't mind? I'd appreciate that. All right, so these are the categories, so we got the beginning, the wandering, right? Now, and then you have the promised land, and you have the united and the divided kingdoms and the captivity. So as you can see, all of the history is divided into these categories, and that's what the hand signs are for. So let's go on. I'm just going to repeat what we did last week, just a real quick history. So we see the primeval history. 4000 BC is kind of where we're pegging when the fall occurred. Not sure exactly when the creation occurred. They used to live for like a bazillion years, so it's hard to tell back when you could live for hundreds of years. So not sure exactly when that occurred, but then you skip, because that whole history, 2,000 years before you get to Abraham. Right, from Adam and Eve down to Abraham, and then the whole patriarchal period. You got Isaac and Jacob and Joseph, and then they end up in Egypt. Okay, next. All right, then you got the Exodus happening, around 1500 BC, and then you see they're leaving Egypt to go to the Promised Land, and then you see they're wandering in the desert. Okay, next. But it's happening incrementally. That's what I want you to see. And then around the period of the Judges, when they arrive at the Promised Land, that's when like the big chunk of history is like 400 years. America is not even 400 years old. So you can kind of see the cycle of sinning and rebellion. It happened for 400 years. Okay, so then you have 12 judges. We just named a few, Deborah, Gideon, and Samson. But you have these judges telling them to repent, and they're fighting wars. But God is really their king during this period. God's always been the king. Even in the Garden of Eden, but you can see. All right, next. All right, and this is when around 1,000, BC. So you go from 4,000, 2,000, where Abraham, and then around 1,000 BC, you get to around where Saul, right, who has no heart, becomes king. Okay? And because people were sick and tired of depending on God. Because people, because you need a king to raise taxes and, create an army, and they didn't do any of that. It was all militia stuff. For 400 years, they successfully defended themselves through militia. The farmers coming out with their hoe, things like that. But then if you can kind of think about it, right, they got into the promised land by just praising and marching and, praying. So God was taking care of them if they would remain faithful, but they wanted to do it themselves, so they wanted a king to do it, to raise taxes, draft young men into the army. They wanted to be more certain, but certainty is not always certainty. Okay, so then you had Saul. You were transitioning to human monarchy. Okay, next. Okay, so then during this time is when the kings, right, the era of the kings, the human kings, is when now the prophets are beginning to speak. And you can see there's the pre-exile prophets and the post-exile prophets, and then the prophets when they come back. So you can kind of see when the prophets are speaking. Mostly it's occurring right before the scattering. We'll see this in 722. Okay, next. All right. 722 is an important date. That's when 10 of the 12 tribes of Israel, remember? Right? 12 tribes, right? Right? Now it's like 2 tribes, That's like, because all of the 10 tribes in the north are just wiped out by the Assyrians. And 722 is when all of the northern kingdom is just scattered. And we don't know exactly what happened to all the people, all the 10 tribes. The lost tribes of Israel is what they call it, right? Now, Judah, the remaining 2 tribes of Judah, they're still around for almost a couple hundred years. Well, 150 years or so. But then Babylonians, not the Assyrians, but the Babylonians come in and they, exile them. And that's also around 586. That's when the temple was destroyed. And if you know anything about Israel, the tabernacle was the tentage, which is the temple, but the tentage of the temple, where the Ark of the Covenant, it is the presence of God. God was among them. And so only the high priest could go in there and conquer that. Only high could go into the presence of God and do the sacrifices, right, on behalf of the people, one time a year, just once. That's all the high priest was allowed to do, is just go in there once. And when Jesus came, what did he do? He tore open that curtain so that we could all go in to the presence of God. And you can hear, so that's what we prayed about. God, thank you that we can come into your presence. That's an amazing thing. So 586 is also when the Ark of the Covenant, we don't know where it was taken, but we'll see in Ezekiel, that's when the presence of God, the glory of God, departed the temple in 586. Right? And then the Judah, and then after the exile, they were in exile for about 50 years, and then they come back. Because Persia conquers Babylon, and then, that's where the whole story of Esther comes in. and then they come back. And the first thing they do in 536 is when they come back around 534 BC, is they rebuild the temple. Because the identity of the Israelites was the temple. And so Zerubbabel it leads that first return of the exiles back to Judah, and they build the temple, and they accomplish it, actually. They finish it in relatively short time, even though there were so many challenges. Maybe one of these days we can do a deeper dive into that, but 516 BC. All right, that's what we're going to end today. All right, let's get up. All right. Let's begin with, the divided kingdom. Divided kingdom. Mostly bad kings. Prophets speak. All right. Don't. Israel. Scattered. Now, this is the north. So I'm the north. So this is why we don't step. All right. This is the northern kingdom. Israel. Scattered. Then you step to go to the south. Judah. All right. Exile. Judah returned. Okay? So let's do that again. All right? Divided kingdom. Mostly bad kings. Prophets speak. Israel. Scattered. Step. Judah. Exile. Judah returned. All right. Have a seat. All right, we're almost done. All right. 2 Kings, you can see that Israel was scattered. In the 9th year of Hoshea, the king of Assyria, captured Samaria, and he carried the Israelites away to Assyria, and this occurred because the people of Israel had sinned against the Lord their God, and they did wicked things, provoking the Lord to anger, and they served idols of which the Lord had said to them, "You shall not do this." Yet the Lord warned Israel and Judah by every prophet and every seer, saying, "Turn from your evil ways and keep my commandments and my statutes, in according with all the law that I commanded your fathers." And it goes on to say that they despised his statutes and his covenant that he had made with their fathers and the warning that he gave them. And so, when you say despise, you ever I don't know. I don't know if you've ever despised me, but sometimes it's just hard to hear things, isn't it? Like somebody comes up to you and gives a correction, and it's just hard to hear, and it gets to the point where you just almost hate them. And it was just, their hearts were hardened. And then Judah was exiled, right? That was 722 BC. And so 586 BC, you see Judah now. And this is Lamentations. This is Jeremiah. He was there, pre-exile, and he saw the exile. And let's read that. "He has made my teeth grind on gravel and made me cower in ashes. My soul is bereft of peace. I have forgotten what happiness is. So I say, my endurance has perished. So has my hope from the Lord. But this I call to mind, therefore I have hope. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness." The closest thing, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Taken. Anybody seen it? It's kind of a revenge movie. I don't recommend it. I'm not even sure why I'm talking about it right now. But there's a famous line that says, the daughter's about to be kidnapped. And he says, all right, just chill out. And he says, "You're going to be taken. You're going to be taken." There's nothing he can do or say to his daughter because she's hiding under the bed. But he knows they're going to find her and they're going to take her. And so Jeremiah sees that they're being taken. But he's saying, you know what? God's going to rescue us. God's going to rescue us. And that's exactly what he does. All right, he returns them. All right, let's read Ezekiel 36:22. All right, and this is the scene, okay, where the glory of God leaves the temple. They lost the presence. The presence of God has left the temple. So here's the scene that Ezekiel describes in 586 BC when the glory of the Lord, all right? "Then the glory of the Lord went out from the threshold of the house," which is the temple, "and stood over the cherubim," which are the angels. They're not angels, but they're like angels. "And the cherubim lifted up their wings and mounted up from the earth before my eyes as they went out." And he's describing the glory of God. It's just almost like visible, just leaving. And that's why when they rebuilt the temple, okay, this is the sign for, this is Zerubbabel on the double. He came back. and he rebuilt the temple, but the presence of God was never returned. The glory of God never, because the Ark of the Covenant was now gone. And to this day, right, except Indiana Jones, nobody knows where the Ark of the Covenant is. Okay? All right. But Ezekiel had, right, God gave him a vision. Because the whole point, just all of the thousands of years of history, here's the faithfulness of God, right, being envisioned and prophetically pronounced. It says, and I will give you a new heart and a new spirit. I will put within you, and I will remove the heart of stone from your flesh and give you a heart of flesh. And I will put my spirit within you and cause you to walk in my statutes and be careful to obey my rules. You shall dwell in the land that I gave to your fathers, and you shall be my people, and I will be your God. All right, let's get up. Okay, we're going to end with Zerubbabel temple, right? All right, so let's start from the divided kingdom. Divided kingdom. Mostly bad kings. Prophets speak. Israel scattered. Let's step forward. Judah exiled. Judah returned. Zerubbabel temple. All right, that's it.